Yeah, forget last week's NATO summit where Donald Trump put the alliance through an emotional roller coaster, at times compliant, at times, belligerent. It's Bastille Day in Paris, the so-called Coalition of the Willing, aka NATO minus the United States, serving up some more serene summitry on the eve of the traditional military parade down the Champs-Élysées, where Germany, Ukraine, the UK, Sweden, and Greece will have aircraft participating in the flyover. Beyond the pageantry and photo ops, there's the cold hard reality of doing more without Washington's military and financial power. For Keir Starmer's last summit as British Prime Minister, the UK signing up, we expect, to a €60 billion defense loan scheme. Germany pledging $90 million to build Ukrainian long-range drones. And then there's Kyiv itself, with the wind at its sails as its long-range strikes force a fuel shortage in Russia. And yet, it still has the problem of ballistic missiles. It can't stop it. Russian missiles that are killing civilians, also inching forward on the battlefield in the Donbass industrial heartland as Moscow continues to feed the meat grinder of a brutal front line. How do Europeans prepare for what comes next? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about the coalition of the willing. Willing to pay how much is the question. With us, we'll be joined shortly by Robert Parsons, our former international affairs editor. With us here in the studio, Marius Strubinoff, analyst at the Center for European Policy think tank. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to welcome back Ukrainian Member of Parliament Kira Rudik, leader of the Golos Party. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me.
Reminder, by the way, that you can always listen, like, and subscribe to the debate wherever podcasts are streamed. Yeah, the French president right now behind closed doors with the leaders of some 34 other nations, including Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron, who has them in Paris on the eve of our national holiday. His day began with the traditional speech before the French armed forces. And with this growing fear that the war could last and could mean that Europe's whole entire resolve will be tested, well, Macron turned heads with this remark.
The message we send to the world is this. Yes, peace is our goal. Yes, we cherish freedom and justice. And yes, we stand ready to fight to defend them, always, and at the cost of our blood if necessary.
At the cost of our blood. Marius Strubinoff, these are the words of a term-limited outgoing president. How's that going to go down, do you think?
Well, I mean, he can say very bluntly, in terms that he chooses now what he thinks. And I think, as a German observer of France, these are words that a German chancellor would not have used. But these are not necessarily new to French audience so much. And I think they show, this is a way that Macron has tried to influence debates, about many other things, going all the way back to the Sorbonne speech. Now we need to see whether it's going to be followed up by action.
I was coming into the office today. There was, campaign posters already for the elections next spring. One by the far left leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon,
yes,
saying peace in Europe. So definitely the antithesis of that. How many you get a sense here of how many of the French or in general the Europeans are ready that cost of blood?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you look at polls, not that many people, and it's a question of I think it's not only a French issue. If you look at other European countries, there's very little willingness, and people are asking, what is this war actually about? What is it for? How does it serve our interests? What is in for us? And I think Russia and Putin know that, and they see one path to victory that is open to them. It's not actually on the battlefield, it's at the ballot box in Europe. And that's playing out here.
The ballot box in Europe, the ballot box in the United States. Kira Rudik, it was probably a bit nerve-wracking for a Ukrainian to watch last week's NATO summit in Turkey, where first we heard a belligerent U.S. president, and then he said he would grant these licenses to build these defense systems in Ukrainian soil. When you compare the vibe from last week compared to this, what's going on in Paris? What are your thoughts?
Hello, and again, thank you so much for having me. I think overall things are going into very positive direction strategically for Ukraine. First, we think that summit in Ankara was powerful and was able to, the spirit was able to overpass the Alaska summit, because Ukraine is not coming there as a country that is losing the war, but is coming to these summits and expressing to President Trump and many other partners the fact that we are able to fight back. And with the proper support, we will be able to have a much better, stronger hand in any sort of negotiation. Also, there is a very fair question that has been raised both at the NATO summit and at the Coalition of the Willing, is the question of the mutual European defense, about what would be a way of defending Europe against the ballistic missiles. The issue is really urgent, again, not only for Ukraine, but for European countries in terms of strategic investments and investments in defense. From what we have heard right now about agreeing of the countries to go ahead with the anti-ballistic system Freya that Ukraine proposed is really optimistic and positive news. It's not helping Ukraine in the short term. I need to be very clear. It may not, it will not help me to survive this night if Russia attacks us once again. But again, we need to be working in all directions, in tactical one, but also in strategic one, because knowing that at some point there would be anti-ballistic capacities is much better than knowing that the crucial situations like right now will just continue.
And again, there have been a lot of these now. They've kind of become a regular occurrence, these Coalition of the Willing summits. But this one, with coupled with Bastille Day, there's going to be Ukrainian fighter jets in the skies over Paris for the military parade on Monday. Does it matter, this sort of pomp and ceremony?
Always. Francois, I cannot begin to tell you how important for Ukrainian military and for people here in Ukraine, the fact that at this point, we are not only are not forgotten, but still supported, and we are seen not as a forepost outside Europe, but as a future part of Europe within different alliances within European Union, not only by words, but also by the facts. Every time I come back from my work trips in different countries, the only question that our militaries are asking is, are the people in other countries remember and asking about us? Like, do they care still? Do they understand that we are fighting for the right thing, so Russia would not appear at Europe's doorstep? And this is why the symbols like this are critically important, and we are grateful for it. And let me use this opportunity to congratulate France and French people on the Bastille Day. It is very important and reminds us that the fights we are taking are the fights for freedom and fights for future.
Again, Marius Trubenhoff, having foreign forces take part in Bastille Day, well, that's happened before. It started in 1994. In fact, the Germans were the first, and there'll be German planes in the sky.
Yes.
But it kind of masks as well the fact that we try to do this joint procurement and these joint projects, and they don't always work. We can think most notably, and Emmanuel Macron regretted himself in his speech this morning, how that FCAS, Next Generation Stealth Project, died. The sort of the corporate cultures, if you will, of the French and German defense industries, they're not the same.
Yes. Well, I actually think that, there's one factor that's a little bit overlooked in that debate, and I think there's an argument to be made that the glass is actually half full. I think Friedrich Merz, and I think overall that goes for the whole German government, he has a special place in his heart for France. He has said that every French president, no matter what his name, will be his friend. But I think so. This is not just about Germany and France not being able to work together or about corporate culture. I think we're talking about fighter jets and we're talking about tanks. And one thing that is very interesting to see with Friedrich Merz and also more broadly the German government and decision makers, they believe in new defense tech. And Friedrich Merz is a known critic of overinvestment in legacy systems. So I think that actually played a big role. And then it's not just about the French-German dimension, which is there, but I don't think it's the only thing.
You mentioned tanks, Marius. You
Yes.
opened yourself up there because Macron did laud a bunch of other joint European initiatives that are in the pipeline. Robert Parsons, Paris traffic could not keep you away. Thanks for joining us. Including, we're talking about tanks right now. KNDS, which produces German Leopard 2 and French Leclerc battle tanks. KNDS currently owned 50-50 by the French state and the German Wegmann Group. The company was going to do an IPO, float shares, and they realized the timing was off. It happened the same week that Rheinmetall's troubled F-126 frigate program died. So again, it's this thing of it seems to be fine when we're talking drones. There, you can do all the joint programs you want. Right now, they sell like hotcakes.
Yes.
But things like planes and tanks is harder?
Well, I mean, I think KNDS is actually a good case in point because, the German Defense Committee was actually willing to vote on it and vote in favor of allocating budget money to this. I think the failed or postponed IPO of KNDS has a lot more to do with the state of capital markets right now.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, isn't
exactly.
it? Yeah.
Investors are looking very critically at defense tech and defense armament right now, willing to put in money into new things like drones, tanks.
And just a quick question, because investors seem to be complaining about this a little bit. But is it a good or a bad thing, the fact that Germany's parliament, the Bundestag, has a lot more oversight on how the money is spent by the company like KNDS than the French parliament does for its French equivalent? Is that a good thing, or is that just bureaucratic and slows it down? Again, Kira, you heard her. She's saying she's in a hurry to get the goods here.
Well, I think this is a very good point because I'm a critic of the fact that the German Defense Committee has to approve of defense purchases that go down to 25 million euros. When we introduced that rule, 25 million euros was a lot of money, but over decades we've seen a lot of inflation. I think we should adjust that rule. There's a lot of bureaucracy in our procurement apparatus. At the end of the day, Parliament has to have oversight. We live in a democracy, but yes, I mean, we need to live in reality as well.
Need to live in reality. By the way, we may hear an announcement when we hear the German Chancellor speak. The Reuters news agency first to report the government in Germany has allocated 90 million euros to finance the purchase of 50,000 Ukrainian Shrike drones. These drones made by this Ukrainian company, Skyfall, which is all the talk of the town.
Lindsey Graham was visiting just last week, apparently, as well, when he was in Ukraine. But I mean, the interesting thing, I think, here is, I agree with everything you were just saying, but seen from a Ukrainian perspective, the fact that market conditions weren't right for this flotation to go ahead is extremely frustrating. There's a war going on, and you're talking about market conditions not being right. For goodness sake, you can understand the frustration of Zelensky when he comes here and says, "So come on, you've got to get your act together." This is not, some minor affair happening on the other side of the world. It's happening right in the middle of Europe, and you don't seem to be treating it seriously enough to prioritize things like this.
Yeah, and Kira Rudik, on that score, how can the Europeans go faster? Again, there are these rules, and we know that procurement can sometimes be an issue where you are, an oversight by the parliament. You're a member of it.
Of course, and we are taking it very seriously. to, on one hand, provide this oversight, but on the other hand, to move really quickly, because literally our lives depend on the way, on how well we will do our job in allowing different companies to provide the weapons and supplies to our military, but also to work with different other states to get what we really, really need here. I want to get deeper into the results of the coalition of the willing and the matter of the anti-ballistic systems. The problem that we are facing right now is that Russia and many others are able to produce ballistic missiles much faster than the rest of the world's democratic countries produce the interceptors. The comparison is Russia is creating and manufacturing up to like hundreds of ballistic missiles a month, and the United States are manufacturing 50 of the points of the ammunition for the Patriot missile systems. So strategically, this has like no good outcome for none of us, right? Neither Ukraine or anybody else who are our allies. So there are a couple of ways of dealing with it. The first point is, of course, figuring out how we can expand the production of the Patriot missile systems, not only in Ukraine, but also in Europe. The second point is on like what are the other technologies and things that Europe is producing can be feasible to be used against the ballistic missiles. And this is in progress, and I'm sure that we will not be talking about it openly just yet. But there is a third very important point is, how is it possible that right now, 4.5 years into the sanctions, Russia is still able to manufacture 100 of ballistic missiles a month? And that's a critical question to answer before you are investing in all of those fancy systems in Europe and anywhere else, because these matters have to go hand to hand with limiting an ability of your enemy to produce the weapons that you are trying to defend yourself from, right? And this is why the matter of sanctions needs to go hand in hand with all the questions of additional investments into defense and security of Europe.
Yeah, a couple of weeks back, we heard the call of some complaining about alumina, which is critical for making missiles that's not yet under sanctions. We're speaking on a day, by the way, where the European Union is discussing a 21st package of sanctions. There is one immediate immediate thing that could be done. Politico reporting this morning, Marius, that the German Chancellor, while in Paris, might say a quiet word to the Spanish and to the Greeks to hand over some of the Patriot missiles that they have right now. Those are ready, and those could go right away. How far will Friedrich Merz get?
Well, I mean, ultimately, that's a question to the Spanish and the Greek Prime Minister. I mean, I hope he'll get there. Yeah, I mean, I think Kira is absolutely right that these things are happening right now. We need solutions yesterday. And that's what we should be demanding from our political leaders who are happening to meet here in Paris today.
All right, we'll know this Thursday, by the way, if there's going to be a Labour leadership contest in the UK. If not, Andy Burnham could replace Keir Starmer as Prime Minister as early as July 20th. That's a week from Thursday. That could potentially make this Starmer's last summit. We'll be listening in on it to him when he speaks. And one where he's reportedly will be making good on both support for Ukraine and drawing closer to the European Union in the same breath. What with the PM to sign Britain up for a €60 billion EU defence loan scheme for the UK for Ukraine. Robert Parsons, this will be Keir Starmer's legacy. He'll be bringing the UK back into the EU through the back door by helping Ukraine?
Yeah, bit by bit. I mean, it has to be said too that Boris Johnson before him, who took Britain out of the EU with Brexit, also was extremely supportive of Ukraine. But to give Starmer his due, he's continued that, and by taking this step, he's doing two things at once. He's giving the support to Ukraine, and as you've pointed out, he's taking another step towards bringing the United Kingdom closer again to the EU without actually taking the ultimate step, obviously, and suggesting that the UK might one day, not very far away, perhaps rejoin the European Union. I think that's still quite a long way off, but certainly the mood is swinging in that direction in the United Kingdom, and Starmer, by this action, is pushing things along a little bit further.
So this coalition of the willing, 34 nations, co-chaired by France and the UK. Right now, though, is it the Germans who are coughing up the most money?
Well, I mean, statistically, yeah, that's the case. But the interesting question is, what does that do to power dynamics, right, between the capitals? And we have elections coming up in France, in Spain, in Italy, and in Poland, for the four largest EU member states after Germany. And we're going into a period where it's going to be very interesting, and there's going to be a lot of weight on the shoulders of the German government to take on responsibility. But they have to balance that. They have to act in the interest of all of Europe, not just of Germany. So that's going to be a fine line to be balanced also with the interest of the German voters.
How do you see it, Kira Rudik? Is this coalition of the willing basically a procurement scheme of kind of a way of centralizing orders, or is it really kind of the beginnings of the post NATO?
I think it's both. So when we are looking at the fantastic decision by the UK and the legacy of Sir Keir Starmer, we also need to look deeper into this amount of money and what it would be spent on. And I can tell you right away that usually these commitments, no matter how many millions or billions they are usually spent within the European Union, within the countries that participate in this schema, to produce certain parts for the drones that will be delivered to Ukraine, or manufacture some drones with Ukraine, but within European Union. So it's not the blank check that's being sent to Ukraine. So every time we are grateful, and we are indeed very grateful to France and Britain and Germany and many others who are participating, we also need to remember that the majority of this amount will be staying within those countries and will be improving and working on both economy development, but also defense development. So, of course, we understand that if our partners will become better in defending themselves, that would mean that we are all becoming stronger and stronger. And we are the most interested at. For the last 4.5 years, our concern with our partners has been that Russia, China, and Iran and North Korea are learning from each other at the battlefield and exchanging the information and improving their military pace and their defense strategy. And Europe is slower in this matter because of the procedures, because, as you have said, because of ways to work together. So we are just from the survival perspective, the most interested for our allying countries to be able to work together and to be able to improve their defense capacity and capabilities, and of course to be investing in the innovation for, again, very, very practical and personal reasons. And yes, right now we are in the potentially best political situation for Ukraine, because while in the United Kingdom, we are very sure that no matter which government and which prime minister there would be, on the political level, their support is really steady. We know in France, situation may change. We know in Poland, situation may change. We know that there are political powers in Germany that are not really fond of supporting Ukraine. And so there could be a very different representation at the coalition of the willing next year.
Again, Robert Parsons, how do you see it? It all depends. You heard both Marius and Kira say it on elections. Is this a nascent new supranational defense organization a la NATO?
Well, it's obviously clearly one of the obstacles to creating the sort of unity and the speed that's needed in the European Union to provide Ukraine with the support. But that is just a given. That's what we have to deal with. That is the downside, if you like, of having democratic institutions like the ones we have, unfortunately, but there are positives as well. And the fact that today, if I get this right, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, they've created, you may already have spoken about it, they've created an anti-ballistic coalition as well, which will involve 9 countries, including one, Spain, which has those Patriot interceptors that you were referring to earlier on that could be supplied to Ukraine. So, you know, there are positives and negatives, obviously, but one would hope, you know, that democratic organisations, by and large, will be more positive than negative, and that once that they do get their act together on things like these 2 coalitions that we're dealing with today, that things can really start to move. I get the feeling, and really it's no more than that at the moment, that the urgency that Ukraine is expressing at the moment, in particular about ballistic missile defence, is getting through to the European side, that they understand that this is urgent, despite the news we've had about the failure of the flotation to get going.
Yeah, we have the long-term, the long-range strikes by Ukraine last week hitting Russia's largest oil refinery that's in western Siberia. And Russia's president's promising yet more powerful strikes inside of Ukraine. He said so this Monday after drones killed 3 overnight in the Moscow region. We can show you images from Solnechnogorsk. Ukraine, though, getting it too, with 2 bulk carrier vessels hit in the Odessa region and 2 killed overnight in the southern Zaporizhzhia region. Russia, which is inching forward. We're gonna cut over now and go to that press conference. The leaders of France, the UK, Germany, and Ukraine are addressing the press.